There's so
naturally.
many components in the system that you can't account for all of it, right? It's like that story that you told one time about the ship that went into a bridge, right? There's some small connector somewhere
Oh,
in this
yeah, yeah,
giant
yeah. That
system
was
went offline or whatever. It's this. It's how you can't monitor every atom in the universe, right? Uh, but then it's almost like you just have to trust for it all to work out. Like I'm kind of switching between very specific, minute perspectives to like the whole global ones because recently I've been kind of struggling with the whole concept of. I've been reading a few books by Jed McKenna. He was writing about his take on spiritual enlightenment and his own journey through it, and his take is quite unique from all the other ones. But essentially, he's describing that what his enlightenment looks like is that he kind of just plays along with the universe. I think that's the way to say it. And that means that essentially you don't worry about nothing. You consider that a greater intelligence has already, figured out everything that needs to be figured out. The only part that I'm not understanding still and kind of trying to figure out is that then what's your role in all of this? What's the individual human's role in this grand game and design? Because that part still doesn't really make sense to me, considering that you have your own little desires and goals and thinking, uh, but then on a lot of this spiritual level analysis, it may not even be seen as your desires.
yeah.
It means that they
It,
they come from somewhere and you act on them, but then they're not even yours. What does that mean? Oh, actually, yeah, I was describing that to someone else online the other day, and I kind of like the way they describe it, and I wanted to see what you think about this. So this is the premise. If you sit down and just try to sit, the thoughts will come, right?
mm, yeah.
So you'll have some thoughts. You're like, oh, there's a thought. You'll notice it. So that's that's meditation. But then you don't know which thought it's gonna come. So the thoughts have been served to you as like, here, sir, have some thoughts, right?
Yeah. To recall
Correct,
some
right?
sort of information or, yeah. This is why it's almost like, the argument for no free will. Yeah, there's always a precedent
Yeah, it's all
before.
connected with that. That's not. But in this case, why I like this approach in this description is that it's purely based on your own experience, and you can't deny that you're not really choosing your thoughts in terms of consciously. Oh, I'm gonna have this thought next. No, you're gonna sit down. You're gonna like, okay, I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna just wait for thoughts to appear, and then a thought comes like, oh, you should go out and get a cheeseburger. That's like a thought,
Yeah.
and
So which one's first? Is it
that
because
can
the,
for
the
sure
stomach
come.
is sending, like your intestine is sending you that signal, and therefore then you have the thought, or did the thought of having that cheeseburger, like where is that coming from? Is that just the
Yeah,
biological
exactly.
signal, or is
And
it
that
just
that
a
that is
desire?
just a biological signal, but the thoughts can be even like that's just a very specific example. They can be very abstract. They can be a lot of my thoughts like that. They could be about tasks or like this how I would have an idea for like uh if you kind of I think the creativity is connected to that state of kind of letting the thoughts percolate. So instead of sitting down and thinking, okay, I'm gonna design this thing, you let the creative thoughts come to you. And this is how I, I remember this all this time now because I engage in a lot of creative forms these days. But I would literally be like out and about, and then I'd have an idea as like, oh, what if I do this thing? And then if I'm walking around somewhere, I'm recorded. I'll record it, like put it in my notes, like, okay, this is an idea because otherwise it's going to be gone, right? But this is just another thought that just comes to you. So thoughts come to you, you do not choose them. But thoughts and desires are essentially the same thing. Because when you have a desire to like, oh, I want to have a drink, I want to drink something, that's essentially a thought, right? It appears as some kind of uh well, not really. Yeah, sometimes it appears as a kind of just understanding, right? You don't exactly explicitly think, oh, I want to drink. You just go and drink if you are thirsty. But uh, to my understanding, thoughts and desires, they're kind of the same thing, because they the action follows them, right? If you have a thought, oh, I need to go to buy a cheeseburger, and then you act on that thought, it's the same thing as you receive the desire. So I use the thought and desire as interchangeable. Can you think of any instance where thought and desire would be completely different things?
Huh. That's an interesting way to put it. I haven't thought
Because
about it like that.
desires are just
It's
thoughts, right? Whatever you want, it's kind of articulated in your mind. It percolates in your mind as a thought. Think of any desire that you can have. It does go through your conscious mind, and it appears as a thought, right?
is there a way to categorize all different thoughts, or is it just one?
That's a good question. That's
Because
what I'm thinking, because essentially everything is just an appearance in your mind, but all appearances in your mind are just thoughts,
because you
right?
could be thinking of something abstract, you could be thinking about something more concrete, and how does that connect to desires? Is it what's the if you want something? I mean, to
If you
dissect
want
the
something and you're aware of it, that's just another thought, right?
so the idea is
Can you desire without thoughts?
you detect. Okay, so everything is stimuli, right? So you detect a difference somehow. And
That's what I'm asking. Like, would you detect a difference between a desire and something else? Because even desire, if you're aware of it, right? If you just, oh, I'm hungry, you became aware of the desire. It came into awareness as a thought, though, because I'm hungry I guess it's a sensation too, right? But can that I'm hungry be without that thought counterpart?
that's just because imagine how would you know? Let's say, okay, we all know how it feels like to be hungry, right? But what makes that command to tell you that, okay, I need food? What's the difference between feeling hungry and knowing that I need to do this thing?
And acting upon it, yeah.
Right. Because it could just be the feeling. Like I feel this strange feeling that like when you
Yes.
feel when you're hungry, but somehow nobody taught us that, oh, we need like basically when you feel hungry, you know exactly what to
Yeah.
do.
Well, at that level, I guess it's
Right.
instinct, right? So
Yeah.
for all of the biological desires, they're kind of tricky. They're not. And instinct is what? It's kind of uh,
Built-in
it's
response.
a built-in internalized chain of thoughts that I think they just get executed automatically. This is why you don't think about it, right? When you're hungry, that mechanism, that instinct kicks in. Because, if you get really hungry, like your behavior and your psychology will be affected whether you want it or not. This is why there's such a concept as hangry, right? That people can actually get angry if they're feeling hungry. They can. I felt it, dude. I felt it.
You
It's
felt
quite
the
funny,
hangry.
and some people don't even notice it, right? They don't realize it because yeah, if you're just not paying attention to that. But for sure, you can make that an experiment on yourself and just watch yourself, like get hungry and then watch yourself be hungry. You'll get pissed off. Eventually, people will also notice it. It's an interesting um, kind of noticing. But so this whole premise, what I'm leading up to is that the fact that you get all these thoughts pop up, that you have these desires come, where do you choose anything of that? You don't choose hunger when it comes. You don't choose whatever thoughts you pop up because you can sit down on a chair and a thought will come and you'll just notice it, but you didn't choose it. So if you don't choose your thoughts, if you don't choose your desires, then when are you choosing anything?
There is no choice, right?
That's the part that, like,
If one
when you
believes that we don't have free will, then
No,
everything
but you
is
don't have to
already.
believe anything, right? This is why I'm walking you through this process of examining your own reality. In your own experience, where and how you're choosing anything, if thoughts and desires come without your involvement. You only get involved when they come, right? They came and you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to deal with you now." But that's the only choice I think you have, to deal
You
with them or
see,
not to deal with them.
that's the state of what happens, but we're describing that process. So that's what the ego is doing. Your self-identity is trying to identify with all these actions. What does that mean for me? What you call yourself. But this just happens to you, basically, right? Your desires or all these thoughts and whatever, that just happens. Let's just say the system, this is how the system works. It happens this way. You just realize, oh, I'm having this thing called thoughts. I'm having this desire. I'm having, oh, this is happening, right? You analyze yourself, analyze with all the knowledge that you have about the human body and all this. Because imagine if nobody taught medicine or nobody taught anybody about the human body, then we wouldn't know, right? These are knowledge is built from before. People pass these knowledge on, and we learn these things. And now we understand what the body does,
Yeah, no,
and
hold on, but
you
how's it
understand the
connected?
process. You understand the process, but before that, you wouldn't understand it. But this thing just happen as you're starting to understand, because you could be a human being who never learned about this, and you can still go on your day, uh, you know, doing whatever humanly that you do. But the difference is your level of how much you are aware, because you could be from a place that's if you never were educated, you were never taught anything, then you will live like a wild person, right? Versus in the city, you learn all this knowledge and then, oh, you act certain different ways. But it's
No,
recognition of.
hold on. I don't know where you're leading there. So knowledge is, we're not there yet. We didn't come to knowledge yet. So far, we just have a couple of components. So let's not even ego is not there yet. So if you sit down, there's nothing, right? There's only like awareness of you existing. So if you're like, say you sit down and you start to meditate, which means like you're not trying to do anything. You just sit down, you're relaxing. So now there's only this awareness of you're relaxing. You completely, like, the mind is not thinking about anything. The ego is not there. It's like nothing's happening. You're just sitting, you're breathing, you're like seeing that the room is around you. Okay, cool. That's it. But you're not thinking about anything. You're not trying to figure anything out. You're completely relaxed. Then the thought comes. Now there are two things. There is the awareness and a thought. Which among this is ego or you or anything? There's only awareness and thought, right? There's nothing else.
But the
The
fact that you
awareness then,
have, okay, but the fact that you have awareness, what does ego fit into that?
but where's the you have awareness? Where's the you? Where's the have? There's only awareness, and then there's thought comes. Where's the you in there? And how do you have awareness? Like, what is the you? Because awareness, you understand what awareness is. I understand what awareness is. It's just the act of perceiving, right? It's just the act of like, okay, I'm aware of the sounds. I'm aware of the air that touching my hand, etc. That's it. So nothing else needs to be
Right, but that is still
complicating that.
wrapped in the, because how I'm thinking about this is that in this in a normal state of your perception, without altering it, say with alcohol or whatever, as a normal state, in the with you being aware of something, you still have enough. You're not in a dissociative state, meaning that you still have this sense of, let's just say, what you are, how you think you are, and you're perceiving and you're realizing you're perceiving. Isn't that still has that element of the ego? Because if you, let's just say, if you're high on something, like some dissociative drug, then you will lose a sense of self, and therefore your perception then will be altered. It's different than how you would feel normally. And in that state, you're.
No, I don't see any difference in your own experience right now. Where's the self? You're just experiencing stuff. The experience come into your awareness. That's it, right? I don't have a self-conception or understanding or feeling of anything else. I just feel like I hear the words, I see the light, and then that's it. There's no other mechanism or sensation or feeling or awareness of anything else. It's just the experience. So I don't have a notion of self. I don't know what that means. I don't know what ego or self means in this experience. It's pure experience.
Okay. And so,
But you are saying you have some kind of self-conception which you're like holding on to in your conscious experience at all times. I don't have that. I don't know what that means.
so what's the difference between you being conscious and when you're unconscious? Unconscious, obviously, you don't perceive anything.
Right? Consciousness, you have experience. But I don't have experience of ego or self. I don't know what that means. I just see light coming into my eyes. I register it. I hear words. I understand them. So there's understanding. There's light perception. That's just experience. So experience entering awareness. The same way, if you have thoughts come up, thoughts enter awareness. So there's only two components: awareness and whatever feels it. Awareness and the content of awareness. So that awareness, you could call it ego or self, right? Because you may refer to it as that's something that receives that information experience. But I call it awareness because that's just more, it seems more accurate, because I can definitely tell that I'm aware. But it's also is as equally accurate to say that there's just awareness. Because in that,
but isn't that I aware? The I aware. Like you feel like you as an entity, you are being aware, and not somebody else, not some other angles, perspectives, or you know.
but I don't know what that I denotes. Because you're introducing some kind of something, right? It's a thing, but I don't know what that thing is, because in my experience, it's just awareness. I'm aware.
Or is that even
it's
a separate thing? Could it be? Because obviously we're trying to describe something here, so it's not. It's the actual process can be.
A lot of it is just linguistic conventions, right? Because when you say,
right.
I am aware, is that any different from there's awareness? I'm aware of.
Because in this instance, you could be aware of something. I could be aware of something here, different locations.
Yeah.
And still you can come up to an awareness, but you don't know what I'm getting aware of at this current moment, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So there is the component of that locality, right? Your awareness being that you understand, you are seeing what you're seeing right now. What you're experiencing right now. So that's the perspective from that.
That part for sure. Like, so let's say there are two separate awarenesses, right? There's your awareness and my awareness, because you have a content to the stuff that only in your awareness, and I have content access to content in my awareness. But is there anything beside the awareness that essentially has the ownership of anything? In what way is it your awareness or my awareness? Like, who sees the stuff in the awareness?
Because you're only perceiving it as yourself in the room that you're sitting in, and that is different than what anybody else on this world is experiencing right now. So, but who's the owner of that awareness? I mean,
that's what I'm trying to figure out, because awareness, it seems like from my own experience, that's the only thing that is, essentially. Because in that experience of examining, what's what, there is no distinct, like, I'm not doing any kind of analysis of, like, is this my awareness or is this not my awareness? That's the only thing that you have in your experience. So you can factually say then there's just awareness in your experience.
Imagine this, right? If we're the antenna, then we're picking up the signal, and we can all pick up the signal. Like right now, I'm picking up the signal, you're picking up the signal, right? So that's the only commonality. But we have a little bit different receiver, but we essentially get the same signal. So what you're saying is essentially, isn't that the idea you're referring to, or the idea that there is a common, say, awareness, but we're just tuning in our own
I've
antenna.
actually heard, of theories like that the kind of consciousness is like a receiver, or a brain is the receiver of consciousness.
Right.
I heard of that, but these are just theories. They do sound like they make sense, though, because Um, it sounds plausible that the brain is some kind of a configuration of a biological antenna that allows you to receive a certain vibe of consciousness, right? And then that consciousness can actually
Yeah.
be like a signal, right? Like a signal entering antenna. But just I was more talking just about pure experience, that the fact that in this looking at intimately looking at this experience and you just perceiving stuff, I'm not exactly aware of any self or ego, just purely through awareness. Stuff just happens, kind of like the reality kind of happens toward you, but it's not like you feel like, oh, there's me, and then there is, and then like reality is not me.
Because even though everybody experienced the world a bit differently, but in terms of the stimuli, like if we are sitting in the same room, witnessing the same thing, we more or less are seeing the same thing, right? It's basically, even though I can't really test that because I only have my perspective and eyes, and I wouldn't be able to test this and be like, oh, what it feels like to be Vlad, right? To kind of being in your mind and start seeing what you're seeing. I mean, from a camera, sure, but the idea that, but at least I think most people can agree that we are mostly perceiving the same thing. Like basically, it's
Yeah,
the same,
like how different can it be, right?
right?
We
How
all
different can it
have the
be?
same biology, the
Like I know
DNA is the same.
some people have color blindness, therefore they don't see those colors. Okay, but their physical
Yeah.
reality is still there. It's still,
Yeah.
you're just
The
lacking the
sensations,
sensors.
they're, I know like the pain barrier can be higher or lower. That part is interesting, So, because like I've met some people and they can't even handle a
Yeah,
pinch.
right.
But for me, like I'm pretty thick skinned. Like I don't like the physical pain doesn't bother me that much. I just experience like, okay, there's a sensation, but it's not such a huge problem that I need to freak out. But I've met some people who like freak out, dude, because like
Yeah,
the physical sensations just amplified in their nervous system so much that they just can't handle it. So there's definitely variations and degrees of how intense you experience certain aspects of reality, I guess. Like same with thing with emotions, right? You can definitely like see that some people are just much more emotional,
more
which
more
is
emotional in certain ways, though.
even what is even that? Like now we're branching out into into emotions, and I still don't particularly understand how one person is much more emotional than the other. Like what is the dimension of emotionality?
That's the mystery, because it really goes into, from what we can understand, is really it goes in back into the person's personal history. What happened to, certain part of it is genes, and a certain part of it is just how that people are, how the person learned their stuff as children, as a child, right? Like influence, the environment does influence. So that's a whole densely kind of packed data there that you
But
can't
but
really
the
parse
but
out.
the root of it is also in biology too, right? Like
Yeah, some
there's the,
people
the
are
genes
more,
contain,
yeah, they can be more,
because I'm pretty sure I've been like this my whole life. I
so
haven't been
yeah,
a super emotional person.
a lot of it is not, you don't have a choice, right? Because you didn't
Yeah.
choose to be this type of, having this kind of emotional,
Yeah. Yeah.
susceptibility.
So this kind of goes back to the what I was started to talk about, is that
You don't
in
have
no
control over anything.
analysis, yes, in no analysis you can find anything that you've chosen. You were
No,
born
you're just
in a
re
country with
it's like
parents
you're
and genes
reacting.
that
Yeah, you're like your
you were
body
thrust
and
into this thing, and
mind
you're like, yeah, react to this with
is
what you got.
reacting to what it is. You're being passively receiving these information or kind of
Yeah.
stimuli, right?
So
Or
if you but if you started with that, right? If you were just born with the genes that you were handed, right? Then you inherited. You essentially inherited all of your
yeah,
reality. Then at what point, or is there a point where you are able to make any real choice in all of this? Because all of the choices you would make are based on those other things you didn't
on
choose.
previous. So
on already predetermined stuff.
I think it's more of a technical thing, technicality of say, basically we don't have control over ourselves, but when we say, but when what we call free will is just a more drastic, how would you say this? Like
Yeah,
basically, technically you do not have any choice, right? But it's the illusion of choice. Somehow you register that as making a choice while it's really dictated by the parameters from before that led you to that decision point. And then when you carry that out, it has an extension. There is the rationale of why you're doing this, because when we are making decisions, we have to go through this active process of figuring out, okay, these are the facts, these are the things, what do I want to achieve out of this? So there's a calculation of projecting and changing the environment in a way that's you're actively making that changes, right? And you decide to do that. It's like that's already been led on from the previous choices. So you don't really, you didn't make a choice in so far as like out of the vacuum of like it's all relative to what happened before, right?
right.
So it's
But
not
that
a
includes
choice.
everything essentially.
Everything. So it's not
So
a
so
choice.
anytime, even if you like go to a restaurant and you look through the menu,
Yeah.
there's a lot of options, right? But the way you actually make the decision for what you're gonna have is based on a bunch of former experience. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I tried this one, I didn't like that one, but all of those previous choices were also like that as well.
Yes. So two
So it's
person will
all
choose
just like a cascade. It's kind of
yeah,
like an
two
algorithm unfolding
so two person looking at the menu and they can have different they make different choices based on what they were
based on
being
their,
informed about
yeah.
their experience, right? Because what some people might don't like this certain type of dish or this vegetable, that meat, they don't like this, they don't like that. It's just because it's informed by, so basically what we like and dislike, a lot of it is informed by some information from before that, whether that's your own personal history, your own actions, or something affected you in your life, or it could be genetic too. You have a disposition to for this type of something that influence how you see things or perceive things. Whether that's some kind of, I don't know, differences that you have, some kind of,
You know, the part that bothers me is that you forget all the time what you like disliked, what you tried and disliked, or
and
that the
then
option that you,
it
and you
happens
do it
again,
again.
right? You do
Yeah,
it
you do it
again.
again, and you're like, ah, I already
Ah,
done this.
damn
What
it!
the hell?
Damn it! I should have
It
known better.
feels so stupid because like, why wouldn't I remember something like that? It's it's where memory like really like, come on, memory, you need to do your job and like memorize all this stuff. That is exactly for situations like this because I don't want to be experiencing the same stupid stuff again and again. But it
But
doesn't
the
even
thing
work
is,
that way.
sometimes it's too variable. There's too much variable out there. So even the same action can be slightly different, even repeated, right? It's like
Mm,
the example is like, okay, if you go get a pizza, you remember it used to be good. That was just that instance of that time that cook did a good job. But then on another occasion, it was it,
true, it's
it
so
could be
many
the same
variables.
person and that person's having a bad day and they make a bad pizza for you and you're the unlucky one getting it at that time,
Oh, that's
right?
true.
So it's like they're so variable even though the same product or same thing are being made and being
So you don't,
but
you
it's
can't even
all
rely
different.
on it. There isn't even a reliable experience or plan or choice that you can make like that because
Yeah, so
the
even if you have a process like say industrialized, let's just say you make spam, right? You have the machines, it's all consistent, it's all more or less you can get the same cans the same every single time. But physically, but physically, it's different atoms. The tin metal
it's not the same,
it's not the same. Even though it looks and feels the same, almost all like in
but
terms of your
technically it
experience,
is the same.
but technically, it's not the same. Even though you
Technically,
perceive
it
it
is the
like
same because it's all made out of the same atoms and molecules.
what,
Because
but
they're
then the
all the same at
specific number,
the
right?
base, the most
The,
base level. It's
but
just
the
their
individual
combination.
units of it, right? I mean, there are different levels to this, right? Different amounts of Like how much particle in this exists in the universe? Who knows, right? I don't think do anybody know the
But
number.
so if the two objects essentially they have exactly the same molecular structure, so nothing out of place, that would be exactly identical. So if you were able to make two identical pizzas with every atom in the same place, they would be the same,
But
right?
technically, what they
But that's not
could be,
possible
but
physically.
it's technically not the same because the individual atom is in this pizza A, and not in pizza B,
But
even though
if
they
their
are the same
combination is the
configuration.
same,
Well, it could be the same. It could be the copy of it, but it's a copy. You need to assign a different number for
no,
that one.
but like there would be no any difference between them. There would be just two identical
Well,
pizzas.
yes, you would perceive it as the same,
Right. But
but the
in every
actual
observable way, they would be the same. If you taste them, it'll be exactly the same because all the atoms are in exactly the same positions, right?
but position in where is two different position though. Like
But it doesn't matter.
pizza
Like
A and
what
pizza
does it
B.
matter if this phone is in this position or in that position? It's the same phone. It now you have two copies of it with exactly same molecular structure. So all the ingredients with the exact
But wouldn't
molecules
it?
and atoms would be there,
But wouldn't it
the same.
occupy two space though?
But how would that matter?
Well, it's two
What does
separate.
it make?
It could be the same, but it's still separate two items, right? Still
Right? It's
one
the
and two.
same, but it's the same. They're exactly the same in all ways.
But even then, it can't be that way because it's all
Yes, it
it
can
made of,
because
it made of the.
imagine you have a bunch of molecules, right? You have these molecules and atoms. If you have them in this configuration, it tastes like A. If you have them in this configuration, it tastes like B. So if you have two in this A configuration, they will taste the same, exactly the same. It doesn't
But
matter
that's
if they're
just
in this
experiment.
position or in that position,
But that's just experiential though. But the
right?
actual physical, like experientially, it could be the same. Yes, you can even think this is a completely the same thing. But physically, down to the atom, there are two different atoms that created that separate piece, right? Even though yes, their states are all completely the same, but they're still, this is pizza A, this is atom A and atom B. So physically, they are distinct, despite the fact that experientially they're essentially the same. That's how
Right.
I'm understanding that
I'm just,
it's
yeah,
physically
but I'm talking about if you can detect any differences between them.
probably no.
That's what I'm saying.
How
They're
would
the
you
same in that
detect?
regard.
Detect as in, are you using the electromagnetic telescope or whatever, or is it just your
N-
eyes, right? There's different
No, but
levels
anything.
of
That's what
that.
I'm saying. If they're identical copies of each other down to atoms, there's no
Okay.
difference between them, right? There's no difference. If you have two sand castles with exactly the same sand grain in every same place, there's two identical sand castles. That's all I'm saying. So if you were able to do something like that with pizza, like down to molecular level, they're identical, you'd have two identical pizzas that you'd be able to enjoy equally, essentially.
Well,
Because to
yes,
humans, to us,
the
like all the measurement happens in our mind. There's no other tool. There's no other measurement. Even if you take I think I watched a video on this that was actually talking about how how fucky this is. The fact that even you say like take a ruler that measures distance in like centimeters. How did it go? It was essentially taking like making every measurement, even every measurement, to be subjective. Because what was it saying? It was saying something like there is no. Yeah, I think they were saying that there is no objective measure of a
measurement. Yeah,
centimeter, right? Because
yeah.
it's still you would need to perceive it as that. Okay, it's that, but it's not like it just exists on its own, which is it's a big contention point in in some of our discussions whether objective reality exists on its own
Because
or
the thing
not.
is, if you agree with if you agree that the space is expanding, like just say if we go by the scientific, I think for currently scientists are saying the space are getting further and further apart, meaning the space is increasing.
Yeah.
So what does
So
that
even
mean with
that is
one
being
centimeter? What does
distorted.
that
Yeah.
mean for 1 centimeter? So that means what? The space are you measuring the same centimeters, or is that already being stretched?
Oh,
So what does that mean?
I remember that some of the good examples that were in that discussion, let's say, they were saying that like for a measure, like the measurement does never exists as a static thing. So like for example, if you were to measure, if you go out and to measure like a horse, and you measure it from, first of all, from where to where do you measure the horse, and who decides that?
Yeah. What's the
Problem
exact?
number one, right? So you
Yeah.
decided to measure some from its nose to its tail or something. You measured it, and it's a number, but then that number is gone because the horse changed already. The horse is already different. It
Yeah.
grew, it shrinked. So the
It
horse never has a size.
it's all about your magnification, right? How much you want to magnify this? What's the magnitude that you're talking
Yeah,
about? What's the
down to what?
down to what level of measurement, right? It's all, you want the absolute, then you still have to come up with a rule to measure it, right? You will have a name for it. You will have a specific parameters, and that has to be created and understood, right?
But all of this creation and understanding, the point essentially is that it only happens in the mind. It always happens in the mind, in human mind, as far as we can tell. But that's where it gets weird. That's what the kind of the Buddhist perspective also likes to show, right? It's the ship of Theseus problem. Is that when is anything
Right.
itself?
Original.
Yeah, when is
Always
anything
being
its
replaced.
own self? Yeah, yeah, like the atoms, like the cells in our bodies that get constantly replaced. Which one? Where's the self in which of your cells is the self contained? Which one of the cells is you? In your brain, which one is it? Like, can you pinpoint which specific area of the brain is
Already,
yourself
no,
in?
someone is already gone. Someone has already
you're
disappeared into something else.
you're not even you anymore, okay?
Yeah, I'm not even myself anymore. Exactly. Not the same from a second
I don't
before,
even know who
you
you
know?
are right now, okay?
Yeah, you're talking to this continual version. It's like those flip books. If the flip books, you flip it, you see the little animation by the cutout. It's like that, right? It's like you're
Yes,
all this
so
version of it.
that's my main gripe with this, semantics, you would say, but it's not really because everything is semantics. Because when you're saying yourself, yeah, what do you mean? Which
Right.
self? The one
You you
that
you already
cognized it
define.
five
So
minutes before?
every single word out of your mouth is already defined. You're using something already predefined, right? That means concepts, idea baked into the language. So all the associations, all the things that associated with why we would say things that way, you know? So language is a storage of information that's being processed in a specific way that you're
There's
expressing
so
it.
much stuff in the language that doesn't exist, though. Like the word for that is a
It's been created.
simulacrum.
Yeah, you're creating all new words all the time to describe
It,
some sets of.
but to describe what if these things don't exist? Like even the word emptiness. Emptiness doesn't exist.
You
What is
don't even
that?
know what is even that, right?
What would that look
It's
like?
an abstract idea that, okay, it's empty versus full, but that's just a
But
notion. But what
we
does that
don't see
explain?
emptiness. Like what, vacuum? Even in vacuum, there's stuff. There's space. Emptiness
Right.
can't be just space. There's space. So that's already not
There's
emptiness.
always stuff. There is no emptiness. There's always
Yeah.
stuff
So
there, something.
emptiness like is a simulacrum or a paradox if you want to call it that way. And then yeah, the rest of the things like infinity. What is infinity? What does that mean? Where have you seen infinity? Yeah, they say numbers are infinite, the fact that you can just count into infinity. But has anybody confirmed that?
I don't think it's possible
Why not?
because
You'll
even
just
if
keep
you count,
counting forever?
even if you count, there's a physical time constraint. So you say one, two, three, right? It, and for you to keep going to even, let's just say, even if the number's known, for you to say that until you reach there, it could be more longer than your multiple
Then
lifespans.
okay, then
So
infinity could be just time then. Is time infinite? Do we ever run out of time? The
Ultimately,
time just keeps
oh,
going, right?
it keeps going. I mean, people are saying, I mean, scientists are saying there is the end of the universe, and they're describing how that will happen and how some of these physical things would, how they will transform. Like the black holes will become, they will disappear, they will dissipate, and so the future is in so many Google years or whatever. What left is just the black holes, and then black holes will disappear, and then what happened after that, nobody knows, right? But the fact that they can
Yeah, so
even
some of
say
the
that
stuff we
this
can't
is,
even theorize.
but the fact that this is what they're saying, it means they did some calculations, and that's the projection. Somehow the math works out,
The
right?
projection. I was just looking it up. In the leading scenario of the universe's heat death, time continues indefinitely, but change effectively ceases as maximum entropy is reached. So the entropy has reached maximum capacity, I guess, to the point where there's nothing to even change, for anything to change in
Nothing
any way,
change. Yeah, nothing change anymore.
rendering the arrow of time meaningless. Whoa.
It
So
just exists
essentially, there's no way to measure the passing of time.
because no
That's
difference is happening.
interesting. Because
Because there's no
there's for
difference.
nothing to change. Yeah.
Yeah, even though technically time is still happening, right? That's what they're
Yeah.
saying. It's still happening, but
Yeah.
because you can't measure it now, because there's no change.
Whoa. Hold up. Whoa. Because it's true. The only way that's what we're doing right now, right? We created this measurement of time, which is just, okay, you've seen this arrow, now it's here. And we call it the passing of time. But really,
Right.
it's only noticeable through
Okay, so imagine again the flip
changes to
book,
the everything.
the flip book example. So as opposed to having cutouts, you have nothing. It's just a normal notebook, and when you do this, you see nothing. At least no shape is being created, right? But that's still going. Versus if you have a cutout, then if you do this, you see images. But the normal book, there will be nothing. This is like that. That's how I'm thinking about it. It's like, yeah, the flip book is still going, but then you actually there's no difference. There's no
There's
changes.
nothing detectable. Yeah. Well, but then does that? When what is time then? Because whether the book changes or not, what does it have to do with time being anywhere? The
I mean,
change is not time.
they did with Einstein's theory, basically, I think it's general relativity the time is relative, is local. So different time can, you have different time at different space. That's why it's space time, right? That's the paradigm shift in understanding physics, is that it's space time. So space and time are combined. That you cannot have one um, without the other. So it's all combined together, as opposed to a separate notion of space and time. It's all one thing. So what does that mean for space then? If you're talking about time, you have to talk about space. So what does that mean for the space? Let's say if those um, black hole evaporates and there's no changes happening in the universe, but the universe still exists, right? Did that change, or is just that black holes are gone and there are no changes, measurable changes? It's zero change, but the space still exists, right? Time still exists, or just space time, and then that's it and no change. Is that the
Yeah. What constitutes existence? Because yeah, there would need to be some kind of detectable something essentially, right? But we can't even imagine not detectable. So that would be the definition of emptiness, like that there is nothing detectable. But that is what that is like that is absence of everything, of perception altogether, because you wouldn't be able to differentiate anything among anything. So it would be just complete static nothingness. Nobody exists, nobody detects, nothing to detect. I was just reading up on just what the takes on what time actually is. Time exists as a fundamental dimension in space-time even in static scenarios, relational views like Aristotle's define time as the measure or ordering of change, while absolute Newtonian time flows independently. So there are even different conceptions and views on time. There's like the physics definition of time, there's philosophical view on time. In classical physics, time is a scalar parameter for sequencing events measured via periodic changes like atomic vibrations. So that's still only
You have to
it's
use some
it's
kind of
it's tied to some kind of changes in existing
yes. So
material medium.
you still have to find that measurement. What you're gonna use to measure. In this case, is the vibration of the atom.
Relativity treats time as a coordinate in 4D space-time, where dilation occurs due to velocity or gravity, decoupling it somewhat from local change rates. Yeah, that topic it can never it always keeps fucking me up, like, because I don't understand how time dilation has what it has to do with the speed.
Well, it's a little, yeah. So yeah, somehow the energy transfer or whatever, the equation, right? Equals mc square, and that's basically describe the.
Some
I
kind of
mean, this
equation is
is,
responsible for all of that
oh
shit. Yeah,
my
yeah.
God. I don't. Okay. We're not qualified
We're
to
not
even.
equipped for this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta have, even if you understand all of math, physics, and what have you, and
I
you will
mean, I
still be
guess this is
pondering about
why,
this.
yeah, this is why they recommend that, yeah, you just study physics if you want to be, if you want to understand anything about anything, really, physics is your first go-to. Like, understand that first, because just knowing how little I understand about it, I just like I can understand how different you see the world if you're a physicist, because you see it all these forces, all these building blocks behaving according to their own, rules and laws. But if you're not aware of any of that, yeah, it kind of just looks like one magical dream or something. It
Yeah,
just you
which
don't
is
know how
what
any
people
of it
figured
works.
out, right? All over human history, right? Before we have all these superstitions or, things we can't explain, and basically, we create a story or create some kind of rationale in our heads to say, oh, this explains it. This is because of this and that. Is the gods, is the, whatever. But now that we have more finer technology in which to detect some of these things, these patterns, like the invention of the telescope and what have you, and in a kind of experimentation on chemistry, and so we've come a long way from you know in the ancient past to now to understand more and more about our realities, and that's because of the technology we invent and the things that we start noticing, right? And the question that we keep asking, because if nobody are interested in any of these questions, that you will not be finding these answers, right? Imagine a society who have no interest in any of this, and nobody want to even ask the question, then it will stay stagnant, right? It will stay the same. You wouldn't have these scientific endeavors. And that happens only because humans are curious and they're trying to find out, okay, yeah, what is the nature of all this? What is this is where philosophy comes from, and all these kind of from different countries, different cultures, they have their own understanding of it, and they're trying to explain, what's the relation of things are happening, right? You have the study of what sociology, study of people in groups. You have the study of I don't know, philosophy of, okay, what is philosophy? Is a way of thinking, right? A way of thinking that is kind of fitting for human use, essentially. The only human are having these thoughts about, okay, what's the relationship of all this stuff? The why, right? So I think it's
Yeah, but
just a natural extension.
I find it interesting that even such you, things like time, which are used in physics, and even that is up for interpretation, because there are philosophers and people who essentially consider time to be abstracted from just change configuration, so they don't see it as essentially as time. They see, like, yeah, there's change, matter changes, but what is time? What is it? It's not like it's just it's not like it exists, as a thing in the universe. So they're saying essentially that the universe is timeless. But if it's timeless and there's just matter that changes, then it kind of explains how the world is kind of without beginning or end, you know? And that's what infinity could be. It's just a timeless energy that just changes form, changes shape, gets bigger, gets smaller, blows up, contracts, solidifies, and etc., etc., etc. I can
Yeah,
see it being that
that
case,
could be
and then
only the
somehow throughout all of that, we it popped up and grew out of, you know,
yeah.
some
All grew up with
microscopic stuff, and we're
grew
like,
up these
what's going
changes.
on?
Yeah, we grew
What's
from
going on out here?
these changes
Is
of
there
energy and
time?
matter, the energy of matter. So that's why people say, we are an expression of, or we are a expression of God. I think I even hear of that before, like this idea that how you're, or it's like you're experiencing what God would have, or
Yeah,
want to experience.
you could you could say that God created the world and then experiences it through uh living beings, which is akin to kind of like being in a Minecraft game, right? And but first but in the Minecraft game analogy, God is actually everything because what's that saying? Yeah, if you want to have a sandwich, first you have to invent the universe, right? Because one can't exist without the other. So that means that if, say, God wanted to experience anything, yeah, he'd have to create the universe. He'd have to have everything that we have right now. And then through people, he'd be like, okay, I'm walking around in the universe that I created. But that makes sense because how else would it work?
That's one explanation, right? It's like ask a different people have different conceptions. So if you ask another person, they might be thinking whether that's adjacent
Yeah, there's
to
so many
this or a
theories.
completely different theories at all, in the end. So
This is why it's feel like it's. I've been reading the consciousness subreddit, and it seems so silly, dude. It seems so silly because there's just everybody just uses all kinds of terms and
theorizing.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
you're this term and I'm this term, and I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
but what does it have to do with
Who
anything?
defined it
That you
first?
see it that way or this way? Yeah, like what are all these views? Who gives a shit about who sees what? What is going on? What is actually happening? It's
It's basically so
it's like we're
variable.
only able to give things labels, and that's all we're able to do.
That's what we're
Oh,
doing.
we discovered this particle. We're gonna call it
Yeah.
neuron, Newton,
So your
neutrino.
experience is a version of reality, right? With all these additional kind of modifiers and layers that changes how you experience it from one
Yeah,
person to another.
yeah,
So, but there is a general, I mean, what we can perceive is that there is a general basis to reality where two persons can see the same thing and roughly is the same. So there is that
yeah.
kind of,
That part, I don't remember how that is being addressed, but essentially, like, because I've heard all these discussions and questions before with spiritual masters or gurus, but the way they essentially respond to those is that you can't verify that because you don't know what the other person experiences. You have
yeah,
no idea.
yeah, no
The
idea.
only thing you have is the only medium you have is words, but you don't know what they're seeing, how they're seeing it. That they're when they're saying you may be seeing like the same color. Say color is a specific vibration of light, right? You may be looking at the same vibration of light, and you may both be calling it red, but maybe the other purple person sees it as green, and he calls red green in his mind
Yeah,
worldview, and you will never know because you just don't even, it doesn't even come up as a point of discussion because it's not like you can see side by side who sees what.
yeah. So it's just basically the majority of people like just say the same exercise. Okay, so everybody, I'm pointing this red color and I call it red. And then, but even then, you have to have enough people agreeing that that exact shade is red. Some people might not see it, right? Say if you're colorblind, you would not be able to see that, and you wouldn't, you know. So enough consensus being formed, therefore people all agree, okay, the red color is this. We all recognize this kind of thing is a red, right? And that can be repeated. People do form that consensus. So even though you don't know exactly what that person is seeing, but it seems like they
But
all got the
they're like,
gist of
yeah,
what we're
we'll
trying to.
call it this, yeah. But dude, I've experienced there's so many shades that you can look at,
Right.
and you legit like there are shades
And they
I
have
know.
names, and they add all these names to it, right? All the different
Uh,
shades of a
well, that
color.
is even yeah, that is like beyond. But like essentially, some of them like certain mixes of green and blue. I can't tell which color it is like, because when I had experiences when people said like that's blue. I'm like looking at it. There's no way that's blue. Like it's more green to me. To me, like for sure, it's just greenish.
There's no
And they're
way
like,
it's
nope, that's a variation of blue. So even there, it starts being like, who gets to decide which gradation is blue or green?
so it's yeah, so
Everything seems to be
everything
subjective.
is subjective, is so the resolution is kind of low, but it's
Yeah,
good enough. I guess it's good enough for people to use it in daily life, and that's kind of, so this is that
yeah,
level of the level of inquiry, like a level of resolution. How zoom in do you want to get in, right? Because you can always zoom in. It's but usually we have this resolution that we are experiencing. But then if you want to go deeper, you can. And that kind of basically raises the question, right? The more we find out about the fundamental aspect to the world, and then the more question we have, because like, okay, so what does that mean, right? Or why is it this configuration? Why is it this way and not the other way?
yeah. But even then, like science is essentially kind of like the ultimate uh, official curiosity of humanity, right? Because we're just trying to figure out how everything works. We figured out so many laws. We see so many relationships between how matter interacts essentially, right? Oh, there's gravity. There's all these forces. There is um, inertia. There's all these laws about how energy behaves. But what is the ultimate thing that we're trying to discover with science?
In the nature of reality, as an isn't an attempt. We're just attempting, but how far can we go with that, right? Because also,
What does that mean? Nature of reality. What does that stand for?
well, for one thing, we're trying to find what's the smallest unit of space or something like that, right? People are trying to find out, okay, if you zoom in mm, enough, what else would you find? Is there a is there a part where it stops? No, because now we
We
find
can't
out,
find that.
because from atom, then there's the protons,
Subatomic
the
particles
neutrons,
now.
and the
Yeah,
electrons. Down there, there's the
keep going.
whole particles with spins and whatever, right? So we're trying to zoom in more in. It's like, okay, what's the next level? What's the next thing under there, right? So that is an aspect of finding out, okay, what's the limits of this universe, so to speak. Why are we finding out about these things like black holes, the stars, these planets, and these systems and comets and things, and that that's out there, and why
Um.
are they
Oh,
work the way they do?
uh, the big thing I think, essentially, what science really is trying to get to, like the ideal point, is that there would be a theory of everything.
Hmm.
So
Although
some
they
kind of
haven't
theory
found
that
it yet,
unifies everything, right? So because every theory that we have so far, it's incomplete. It reaches some kind of limitation where it can't explain
certain
some level of
aspects. Yeah.
reality. Yeah, it's like it's not doesn't work there, which means it's an incomplete model or it's missing something. It's not in it's not accounting for something. which kind of denotes that there's still stuff for us to figure out. We haven't figured out something but I wonder if we do have that understanding, what would that look like, and what would that give us? Like what's the criteria for the completeness of that level of understanding? What would be the point that we reached and like, all right, we got it. We got it all. Is that even possible?
But even if you get to that level,
Because
you
even that
already
sounds kind of scary. Because imagine you reach you reach the end of the edge of like, okay, these are all the building blocks in your sandbox. You like, this is all you can do, guys. Seems like even that is kind of, you wouldn't want that, because then you reach finality and limit, and we don't really like that. We
but
like
yeah.
options.
Yeah, but can we even discover the end of it? Oof, I mean, there's a lot of things that still can be worked out, right?
Yeah,
That's
there's a
why
lot
we
of
don't
space.
have
Who
that's why
knows?
we don't
Maybe
have
like,
the theory of everything. We
yeah,
don't have it yet. So it's all
maybe
these
once you actually visit some other planets or star systems, you'll find out
you
some
could
absolutely
change
new stuff
you could
that
change
you,
the
yeah,
understanding, yeah, for sure.
that
For
you don't
stuff we
have
haven't
access to it
account.
right now.